Hello and welcome to Tracy Mommy Reads. I am back again with another video. Today I am going to be talking about the book Kill for Me, Kill for You by Steve Cavanagh. Kill for Me, Kill for You. So this particular book, this was nowhere on my radar. I went to the library to pick up a couple of books that I had reserved. Like I actually went for physical copies at the library, and they had a shelf where they had like new releases. And I read this a few months back, but it was one of the books on there, and I immediately gravitated towards it because I had to take it back to the library. Is why I'm showing you the cover here on my Kindle. But I immediately gravitated towards it because I don't know. I guess I've just been in one of those kind of reading moods. But, I flipped it over and I read the blurb and I was like, this sounds interesting. And Steve Cavanagh, I think the other book that I read by him was the book 13. And I love the premises of his stories. Some of them that I thought I was going to read or pick up, they just always seemed so dense. Like it was a lot going on because most of the time there are police procedurals or something involving, criminal cases. And he uses, I don't know if that's his background or what, but he uses a lot of that information or perhaps knowledge to, build up his stories. But this one, it didn't seem that long. And essentially what it's about, it's not a unique premise by no means, because there have been movies and other books that I've actually read and, movies that I've seen where two people enter into somewhat of an agreement. They're having an issue with a person and they want out of that situation. So, they meet someone kind of anonymously or randomly. And because that person has no connection with the person they're trying to disentangle themselves from, and, that person also has a person that they want to, get away from, they make a pact, if you will. I'll take care of your problem if you take care of mine. In other words, I'll kill this person for you, you kill this person for me. And that's kind of what's going on in this particular story. And so I'll tell you here in the blurb, it says, two ordinary women make a deadly pact to take revenge for each other after being pushed to the brink in this unguessable and unputdownable psychological thriller. So yeah, like I said, that's kind of what's going on here. And I will tell you, based on, a lot of times people say that, oh, it was unputdownable. If you say that about your own book, that just seems kind of like, I don't know, that seems weird to say that about your own book. It's kind of like, to me, like people who like their own photos and stuff on social media, that is pretty accurate. Like this book, I think I read it in 24 hours. I was up late, to maybe 1 o'clock in the morning when I first got it, because I was like, no, I got to know what happened here. Let me get my notes. So, as you already know from reading the blurbs, there are going to be two people involved, two women, right? And so when you're reading the first chapter, this is the thing that was crazy. At the end of every chapter, it left off with a thing where you're like, and you had to flip to the next. There was every chapter had a cliffhanger, so to speak, or some wild action where you really had to keep turning pages. You couldn't put it down because you needed to know what was going to happen next. So it was very fast paced, very, very different than that last book I read by him, 13. It was very fast paced. And I will tell you that one of the things that drew these two women together was the death of children. Each of them had lost a child. So, but the thing that was confusing me and throwing me off my usual game of who done it and trying to, say, oh, I know who did it, is because there was another story taking place. And so you have this woman, Amanda. We meet her in the first chapter. She's one of the women whose, child has been murdered, and, she's kind of off the rails. She hasn't been the same since that happened, right? So we meet her, and you already kind of know, just by what's going on, what she's doing, that, she's going to want somebody dead. So we know she's one of the players from the blurb. But then there's this woman named Ruth who is like, she becomes the victim of a break-in, like somebody broke in her house and attacked her. And they think it's like some guy that's been going along, killing all these women or whatever, but he's kind of broke his pattern with Ruth because she lived or whatever. So we're getting parallel chapters where we're learning what's going on with Ruth. Then we're learning, what's happening with Amanda. And there's this detective who he's kind of investigating, but he's like getting pulled into both cases, like, because they're criminal cases involving, like assaults and murders and things like that. That's all under his purview. So he handles that kind of stuff, him and his partner. So he's the only like connecting thread at this point. And it was just like the whole time I was reading, I was like, not that I don't care about what happened to Ruth, but where's the lady that's, like in the blurb, they said that somebody's going to come, with Amanda and, but you keep reading because like I said, at the end of every chapter, there's like these bombs that are dropped and these things that are happening. Finally, we get to the person that's going to be, what you're assuming as a reader, the person that Amanda meets that they're going to trade off favor, right? She goes to this survivors group, people that have lost children or family or whatever, through like horrible crimes and stuff. So she meets this woman named Wendy, and her and Wendy go out and have a drink, and they realize they have a whole lot in common, as far as they both lost, a child, a daughter specifically, how they feel about things, how they want the person who they know did this crime, but the justice system can't seem to bring that person to justice, but they know it was that person. They both want those people dead, but the guy who Amanda, has accused of hurting her daughter and killing her daughter, he has a whole restraining order, right? If she gets within so many feet of him, she's going to jail because they had a whole investigation and court case and stuff, and he was found not guilty of the crime. So this man's like, I'm trying to get on with my life. This woman is crazy. So she's figuring if Wendy can get the drop on him because he doesn't know Wendy. And then, Wendy is like telling her about this guy that did something to her daughter. And it's kind of a similar situation. They know me because I'm always coming around because I'm going to make him pay. But he doesn't know you. So if you go after him, then we can help each other out. And then that's when things kind of go off the rails. I'm not going to, it's hard to talk about this without giving you spoilers, but I will say one thing. Somebody does not hold up their end of the bargain. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So therein lies the whole juicy piece of this that makes you really not be able to put it down because you're like, what? Well, why? Well, now what happens? And, what's going on with this? And again, in this background, you still have this story with Ruth and, what happened to her and her husband and all that stuff. And that story in itself, it gets kind of crazy and convoluted, as they try to get revenge on, the person that hurt Ruth. And it's not until, because I'm trying to think, I had an epiphany. Let me see something. I'm trying to see where was it. Yeah, I was almost at the, it was, I don't know what page it was, but it had to be almost at the end when the light bulb went off and I figured out what was going on or what was happening. And even though I felt like I knew and eventually I did know, my mouth was still hanging open because there were still other players and other pieces. Because at the end, when you realize how those stories come together, Ruth's story and Amanda's story and how they're connected, it was just done, I really think, pretty masterfully. I think that the author did a really good job of sucking you into this story. A lot of cat and mouse stuff going on, on its face, if you were how I'm telling you about it, or how if you talk to someone about it, it may seem confusing because you're like, well, what did that have to do with this thing? Or but everything starts to come together and it is just so cleverly done. It is just so plausible. As plausible as stories with this type of premise can be. I mean, if this was real life, a lot of people would have been in jail. and a lot of people probably would be dead. But for the purpose of the story, I felt that the connective tissue, was there, and it made for a really good, fast-paced read. It was one of those nail biters. I even had a note here that said "my nerves" with a bunch of exclamation marks, because I was just like, what is happening right now? I cannot believe he did that, she did that, or whatever. You were just like, for sure, if this were a movie or a TV show, you would be talking at the screen, yelling at the people, telling them not to go that way, or why are they doing this and that. So brilliantly done in that respect. And I can see this, being a movie of some sort with a big twist that nobody saw coming. And again, like I've talked about, like I said, I'll let y'all know if Steve Cavanagh actually, because I don't know where I'm getting that from. I feel like he has a past or a history or a former career, something to do with law enforcement or criminal law or something, because it's just the way that he writes some of these stories. It's almost like it's beyond just a creative thing that's being made up. It's like somebody that has actual knowledge of how these type of things work, But it was very, very good. And it's like this cover, you see somebody's looking out the window, because everybody was looking over their shoulder at one point in this book. And the ending, like the very last chapter, last few pages or whatever, I want to say it just brought everything full circle. I'll say that. I'll just leave it at that. It brought everything full circle, and you feel like maybe a little justice was done. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. But, it was a really, really good read. It kept me engaged. And, I've said this before. When you read books like this, I know they seem a bit morbid or, heavy or whatever. But I feel like, just for the same reason people watch movies like this is the ultimate level of escapism. While there are some books that may have elements like this that people may feel like, oh, that's too close to real life. They want to get lost in worlds with dragons and wizards and things like that. But I feel like with books like this, if you're looking for escapism and stories where people get what they deserve, it goes outside of, the legal judicial system and all of that sometimes fails people when it comes to getting justice for their losses and things like that. Then these type of books, they fit the bill and they do what they're supposed to do. I know I have a friend, when I told her about it, she read it as well and really enjoyed it, but she said that she has to take breaks from books like that, because you have to kind of decompress and do what they call palate cleansers. So I do try to mix it up a little bit, as opposed to reading books like this back to back. Sometimes I may have, books in this genre back to back as far as the lineup when I do my reviews, but that's because, like I told you guys, I'm so far ahead of the curve right now with content in the pipeline. So I try to schedule, this, particular book came out recently-ish. So I don't want to talk about it at the end of the year. So maybe I put it behind another book in a similar genre, but I didn't read them back to back, if that makes sense. But anyway, I'm rambling now. If you have read Kill for Me, Kill for You by Steve Cavanagh, I would love to know your thoughts. What did you think about it? What did you think about that twist? Was that crazy? I am just finding more and more, and I talked about this about The Silent Patient being one of my favorite books in this genre because of the twist. That is a thing now that I need a really good twist that I never saw coming for me to really say that a book was really, really, really good in this genre. Because sometimes if I figure it out midway, like I said, I knew what was going on at a certain point, but never would have imagined it was going to turn out to be the way that it was. And it was one player that I had totally was not on my radar and didn't figure out what that person was doing or how they were even involved. And that was one of those jaw-dropping moments. So if you're looking for stuff like that, and if you love, thrillers and police procedurals, or, things that are like cat and mouse and fast-paced, then I think this will really fit the bill. But if you've read it and you have different thoughts, let me know in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure that you like this video. And if you have not already subscribed to my channel, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and take the opportunity to do that now. Turn on that post notification bell. And hey, share this video with someone who you think may enjoy my content. Thanks again, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you next week. Bye.